Hi, my name is Mark Pascal. I'm a co-founder of the Wellbeing Protocol. So this is a short presentation talking about the context and the why behind the project, the problems we're trying to solve, some of the research that's influenced us, but then drilling down into a specific architecture approach that we believe is both disruptive and pragmatic. So first of all, what is the Wellbeing Protocol? So we're a project actually began as a research initiative funded by the New Zealand government to explore how Indigenous Māori values of localism and collectivism could be combined with new emerging technologies to reimagine the community grant system. But we've now grown over the last couple of years into a small team with a bigger vision, with trials now running in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. So why would we want to scale localism, and what's wrong with how we fund social good currently? Before we answer that, we need to ask a bigger question. Why do we need philanthropy? Why do we need social welfare? Well, it's because the world is an unequal place. In any capitalist society, there will always be segments that don't do well. Typically, the marginalized, the disadvantaged. But as a species, we're actually hardwired to care. It really wasn't that long ago in human history that our very survival depended on being part of a small group of people, a village, a community, a tribe. But the problem is that one of the core features of capitalism is that it's constantly striving for efficiency. And technology has increased that efficiency in the form of economy of scale centralization. So we have bigger computers, bigger companies, bigger government. And the really unfortunate side effect of that centralization is the gap between the rich and the poor is increasing. And the systems we put in place, social welfare, philanthropic systems, are increasingly struggling to cope. And if you ask the people in those systems what the challenges are, you get a whole lot of issues, from dependency on short-term funding, inefficiency, bureaucracy, difficulty in measuring impact, inequality in resource distribution, outsider-driven, so this core problem of the fact that we have people with power and money making decisions on behalf of people without power and money. Then we have fraud, corruption, lack of transparency, fragility, lack of resilience, political influence, policy changes, burnout, and the list goes on. But really, these core problems can be boiled down to probably four key things. Our current systems are inefficient, inequitable, that we have this power imbalance, and they're fragile. And the system is really perpetuating dependency. And it's really hard to create systemic change. The system is so entrenched. So how might we reimagine our social good system? We believe that one of the keys to a better approach is this thing called localism. Localism, a focus on local communities, economies, governance, or culture. It emphasizes self-sufficiency, local decision-making, and community-driven solutions. And in our hearts, we all kind of know that working on things that we care about as a group, as a community, is good. And the reason that it's good is that it builds up other forms of capital, not just financial and material capital, which we're a bit obsessed with in the West, but other forms of capital, social, intellectual, natural, experiential, cultural, etc. These are the things that are actually good for our well-being. But we're constantly fighting this very powerful force of technology-enabled hypercapitalism that is working very hard to decimate our real-life communities. And there's actually strong evidence that community building can have significant benefits on our health system. For example, in 2018, the results of a 3-year public health experiment in Frome in Somerset were released. They invested in community building, and the results were incredible. Hospital admissions for the surrounding counties rose by 29%, and in Frome they fell by 17%, so 46% difference. So if we believe that localism is good, how might we start to build new economic systems that incentivize and support localism at scale? One clue is the groundbreaking research done by this lady, Eleanor Ostrom. So Eleanor was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize for economics. And Eleanor was a big fan of localism. This is one of her now famous quotes. There is no reason to believe that the bureaucrats and politicians, no matter how well-meaning, are better at solving problems than the people on the spot, who have the strongest incentive to get the solution right. But she came at the problem from quite an interesting angle. She came at it from looking at how the groups of people look after and manage commons, or what she called common pool resources. So a commons is something that nobody owns but everybody benefits from. And the typical Western philosophy to commons is that unless something is owned or regulated, it gets trashed. So the classic tragedy of the commons, as it is well known. But Eleanor went around the world and discovered lots of examples where groups, often indigenous cultures, were looking after commons. And she identified 8 key design principles for successfully managing the commons. So we began thinking about whether community well-being could be considered a type of commons, and could these rules that she came up with be used to design new economic systems that support localism and community well-being. But the problem is that our current economic systems have been developed on this highly centralized financial, banking, tech infrastructure. And these systems essentially make it very difficult to genuinely push power out, and power and control out to the edges, to the communities. There will always be this bureaucrat, politician, banker, tech bro who has ultimate power to influence, corrupt, or shut down. So we need to build any new system on some kind of new substrate, a new operating system that is decentralized, cannot be corrupted or owned by any company or government. And fortunately, we actually have one of these, and this is known as blockchain or Web3. And don't have time in this presentation to explain all the ins and outs of this. Happy another time to spend time dispelling some of the headline-grabbing myths, like it uses lots of energy or gets hacked all the time or only good for criminals. But I would like to, in this presentation, make a couple of key points about this technology. It enables us to create new forms of money, known as tokens. Bitcoin is the first and most famous one. You've probably heard about that. I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin. It's this volatile, environmentally unfriendly digital gold equivalent. But we can also create these things called utility tokens. So these are tokens that have some use, some value in the world. And we can also create stable coins. So these are useful because they are pegged to a traditional currency like the US dollar or the UK pound. But more importantly, what blockchain Web3 gives us is this ability to create smart contracts. So smart contracts are kind of think of it as a digital set of rules that once it's put on the blockchain, it will run itself without needing people to oversee it or enforce it. And smart contracts allow us to make highly efficient, transparent, and incorruptible systems. So Web3 gives us this ability to create programmable value flow, new forms of governance, and the ability to create decentralized, community-controlled digital systems. So we believe that we can use this infrastructure to truly give power and autonomy to hyperlocal groups of people to scale localism. But building this infrastructure is a journey, and we believe the first step is to start to redirect current philanthropic and social welfare capital towards the hyperlocal. So that these groups can actually start that journey towards community empowerment. But we want to do this in a way that is replicable. So we can do it not just 5 times, but 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times. So let's move from the abstract to the more practical. How might we start to encode Ostrom's principles into this new infrastructure to redirect philanthropic or social welfare money towards hyperlocal groups in a way that reduces the power imbalance? So let's first look at some of the stakeholder groups in this potential system. So first of all, community. So this is really a local group who care about something. So it could be 12 people who want to create a community garden, or 100 tenants in a social housing complex who want to improve community health, or 150 parents in a school who are worried about child mental health, or 50 refugees in South London. Doesn't really matter. It's simply a group of people who have a strong desire to make a difference or who have a common challenge. And these groups don't have to have charitable status. They don't have bank accounts. They often don't have financial governance or group decision-making skills. So what do they want? Well, I guess that's the point. We don't know what they want. It's going to be different for each small group. But if we look at the science and probably our intuition, there's probably a few things that we can assume. They want well-being, happiness. They want to make their own decisions. They want to build capital, not just financial and material, but social, experiential, all the other forms of capital. And they want to become more resilient. So the second stakeholder group is the funder. So this is a person, it could be an individual or an organization who wants to use financial capital for social good. So these already exist out in the world, and we can assume they want efficiency, they want equitability, and they want value alignment. The third group is this group that kind of sits in between the community and the funder currently. So there's the local community development organization, the charity, etc. So they have been there for often decades. They've spent a lot of time raising money, and they have a lot of experience in their local environment with their local communities. They know what's going on. What do they want? I think we can assume they want to maximize impact. They want to spend less time raising money, and they want some certainty of income so they can pay staff. So the three stakeholder groups, we have the funder who is funding doing good, and we have the community who is doing good, and then we have this partner who has kind of got two hats. One, they're supporting the community, and this is really important because, especially for the more marginalized, disadvantaged communities, technology can only be one part of the solution. They need human support, and the partner, that's what they do. They need to support the community, deal with all the issues that come up. So they're supporting the community, but they also need to provide a role to the funder to give them the proof that their money is doing good. So let's imagine this group of people in the community. So let's imagine they are given a treasury. But the problem is, it's not that simple, because if you drop a briefcase of money into a community hall, it's probably not going to go well. So we need to put some things in place. So first thing is what we call a constitution. So this is where the promise of good is defined. So if we get money, we will use it for child mental health in our area, or migrants community support, or whatever. That's defined up front. We then need this infrastructure, this tool, to allow the community to democratically, fairly, and transparently make decisions around how that money gets spent. And that's the tool that we've spent the last couple of years building and have run trials across 3 countries now. Essentially, it's a governance workflow tool that results in micro grants being spat out into the community, but so community-controlled micro grants. So, and this is what it looks like currently. So it's an app on the app stores, and it's super simple to use, and anybody can come up with ideas, and they flow through this process from ideas to proposals to projects, and it integrates reporting all into it. So coming back to this, what happens is the partner has a community escrow account. So think of it like a bank account, but it's not, it's on the blockchain. And in that account, once they have money in that, all they can do is flow money through into the community treasury. And we recommend they do that incrementally. They stream money in. They don't put the whole lot in, they stream it in. And when that happens, they get a cut, a pre-agreed percentage goes into their wallet to support their staff, but that's all pre-agreed. And they make that call as to when to make the next tranche of money based on real-time data from the app. So if the community is following the constitution, then they make the call, okay, we're going to release, on behalf of the funder, we're going to release the next tranche of money into the community treasury. But once the money is in the treasury, the community is fully empowered to do what they want with it. But the partner also has their own escrow account, the partner escrow account. And that's because partners typically are looking after many communities. So when they get money into their escrow account, they can make a judgment call. Okay, I want to put more money in this community account versus this other community account. So they make that call, again, based on the information that's coming back from the community. We now have the funder. So the funder has essentially their treasury, and they can do 2 things. They can fund the partner escrow account, or they can directly put money into the community escrow account. And they do this based on information, data, which comes back from the community and also the partner. And some of the key points about this architecture. Funders can support many partners and many communities. Partners can support many communities. A community can have many funders. This is important as a community attracts more funders, they become more empowered as they are less dependent on a specific funder. Also, every transaction, every business rule is fully transparent. And we move into this kind of streaming architecture. Think of the money as flowing down a stream from the left to the right. And it can only flow down and not up or leak out because it's hard coded in. And we believe this is the right balance of aligning incentives between the stakeholders and giving genuine control to communities. And at scale, we see this as kind of this two-sided marketplace. On the left-hand side, we have potentially millions of community groups doing good, and they could choose to publish their constitutions, their impact data to the platform. And we can start to build tools that amplify the collective voice of these communities to, for example, central government or corporations. And the data generated by these communities is hugely valuable to policymakers, governments, and philanthropists. The communities own this data, they can benefit from it. And on the right-hand side, we have funders of any size could potentially get access to that data and in a couple of clicks, start streaming money to 1 or 1,000 of these partners or community groups within the system. And at the community end, another way to think about a group of people democratically managing a treasury is a cooperative or a mini government. If you think about it, our main government, all it is a group of people deciding how to manage a treasury. And at the hyperlocal level, once the community trusts the system, i.e. solve the trust and engagement problem, you can then start to build more tools that support localisms, savings pools, volunteer coordination tools, micro, small business endowments, community currencies. And there's no reason to believe that those communities, those mini cooperatives, couldn't start owning income generating assets, the land that the community garden is built on, or the solar battery, so that they can start to reduce their dependency on funders. Huge thank you to all the supporters who've allowed us to go on this journey. I'm very happy to talk to anybody who wants to find out more. Thank you.